All right, everybody, welcome back to week four of Boombuck. We're going to call it week four because week three, we kind of dropped the ball a little bit and waited a little too late, Ryan, and didn't get it in. Jimmy got his stuff in, but me and Ryan were a little late, and, you know, Jimmy does our he's our editing guy. Is that the official title of it?
I don't know. Guy? Don't give him any title, any other title than whatever he has. He's a guy.
He's not the guy. He's a guy. But no, Jimmy does our editing, so we didn't get our stuff in last week, so I apologize for that. But getting back on this week, we have now about 3 weeks under our belt for college football, 4 for some because of week 0. We have a lot of stuff to talk about. We're going to deep dive into Penn State, Oklahoma so far, and Ohio State. Jimmy's obviously going to hit Ohio State with us. First thing, just kind of everybody else, not our teams, kind of like the big thing, I think, is Alabama looked vulnerable. I mean, the first 2 weeks, everybody, like, after week 1, and it was kind of one of my pump the brakes, but still, I mean, everybody's pretty much ready to hand Alabama the trophy. And
right.
For reasonable, like, for a good amount. Like, they played Miami and beat the ever-loving crap out of it. Granted, Miami got the crap beat out of them this weekend.
By Michigan State, yeah.
By Michigan State. So, like, Miami obviously was not the 14th best team in the country.
Right.
But they looked vulnerable.
They did look vulnerable. The one big thing that sticks out of my head, not to jump into Penn State already, but after Penn State wins, the only thing that's running through my head is like, okay, they're good. Are they good enough to beat these top-tier teams? And when I think of top-tier teams now, I'm not thinking of Clemson this year. They don't look that good. You know, Ohio State's obviously down. Oklahoma's still got to get their feet under them. Alabama was that team that's like, I looked at Penn State and I'm like, there's no way in hell Penn State could beat that team. But then I go back and look and I'm like, wait, Alabama almost lost to Florida. They have some holes on defense, so they're not, you know, invincible anymore. I feel they're
not the Alabama of last year or the LSU of the year before, where we all knew nobody was touching them.
Right, like, but it is 1 week, and that is a big rivalry game down there in the swamp, and it's you know, we might come back in 3 weeks and be like, okay, Alabama is the team that everyone thinks they are. They just had a down week against Florida and still won the game, to be honest. So. They did show some holes, which is good for the rest of college football teams, and you know hopefully that keeps going. But
the college
you never know.
Football
Alabama
might be exciting.
Saban is notorious for yelling at teams. He'll go out there and beat a team by 40 points, and he'll go to the press conference and just beat his team into the living ground. Like he'll lay into his team. He does it every week. You know,
week 1 he did that. He came in and was just like. After they just looked invincible, I was like, you know.
Yeah, I'm benching 3 guys, cutting 2 scholarships. Yeah, it's like.
So, like, my big thing about Alabama, like, especially against Florida, so far what we've seen them play a Miami team, like we said, that is not what is thought.
I think they were blown up beginning of the year. I don't think they're as good as what they thought. But
people wanted Miami to be back because Miami is good for college football. Yep. They wanted to be back. They're not.
Nope.
I forgot who they played last week, but it was a nobody. It was ugly.
Oh, it's like, I forget. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, I mean, so then Florida was their first test. The big thing for me going in this game, which I thought was really interesting, was this Alabama defense was supposed to be the most experienced, vaunted defense Saban's had in a long, long time.
Yeah.
And this defense gave up 450 yards to Florida. With Emory Jones, who's, I mean, let's get real. I mean, he was a highly rated recruit, but he's not that guy for quarterback.
Nope.
He's not. A running back that I don't know, like all their whole team left for the NFL, and they still gave it 440 offense. And the big thing was 245 of that was on the ground. Alabama gave up almost 250 yards of rushing.
That's a lot.
You don't hear that about Alabama defenses at all.
And the scary thing is, this year you don't hear that from Georgia. Georgia is giving up 50 yards a game rushing. It's like that's a defense, and Alabama's going to be looking up to that. Like when they come to play in the SEC championship game, possibly, like that's going to be a battle, and Georgia's going to come ready to play on the defensive side. That's for sure.
Right, and the big thing. Don't get me wrong. Alabama's had some. Obviously, some fantastic wide receivers. There's a stupid amount of them in the NFL, and some great quarterbacks are in the NFL. But they've always had this rushing attack. Najee Harris.
I sent you guys a text. I watched it live. Good thing about being in Pennsylvania, I get to see every Steelers game and every Eagles game, which kind of sucks for me. But so I want to see Cowboys games. But I happened to tune in and watch Najee Harris throw a guy 3 yards down the field. But yeah, they miss him, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, so and then this year Alabama against Florida, they only ran for 91 yards. That's very un-Alabama.
Yep.
So we're going to see how they are going forward. Obviously,
in a win, still you have to say that. The same thing I'll say about Oklahoma, and the same thing I'll say about Ohio State.
Right.
You got the win. You still got time to figure it out. But
they do. But I mean,
you're showing some vulnerability.
Looking at their schedule, Ole Miss puts up points. They got to go to College Station and play A&M. At Mississippi State, which Mississippi State's but Leach could pop up at any moment and surprise you.
Yep.
And they still got to play Arkansas, and they still got to play the Iron Bowl. And the Iron Bowl is at Auburn this year, so they got to figure it out. Cause you can't run the ball for less than 100 yards a game and be okay in the SEC. You just can't.
And Tank Bigsby's he's a football player. That guy he came to the whiteout and he performed. I mean, Auburn was able to run the ball very well.
They did, and his last name or his first name of Tank.
Yeah.
It fits.
Yep.
It definitely fits. But just otherwise, real quick, Clemson. Oh my God, I don't know what the hell's going on with them. Don't get me wrong, Georgia Tech, where I got my mask from, love them, but they are not good at football. Clemson snuck by them. Georgia Tech had the ball first and goal from the 4 with a chance to tie it with 3 minutes left.
How much does the rain delay factor into that? Because I texted you guys as well. I was watching that game. I turned it off. I was watching other games. I was watching Ohio State. I was watching Oklahoma, and that was still 7-0. I was like, wait a second, still 7-0. Then I realized it's like, oh, they're in a rain delay. They haven't played for 3 hours. So how much does that factor into the game? Like Penn State had a pretty notorious rain delay at Michigan State like 3 or 4 years ago, and it just completely players went into the locker room, they took showers, it was a totally separate game. Like it gets weird when there's rain delays involved.
It does, and I'm not going to say it doesn't. However, I mean, I'm not saying Georgia Tech's defense is by any means on the same level as Georgia, but Clemson's played 3 games. One of them is against a South Carolina State. They're a D2 school, whatever they are. So they played 2 D1 schools, and in those 2 games put up a combined 24 points. That is a problem.
That's not good.
That is a big problem, especially when one of those teams is Georgia Tech.
Yeah, and how much does losing that running back matter?
ETN?
ETN. Well, then the other guy that was in, we were talking first week, the running back for Wisconsin, that's a transfer from Clemson. He left. So what do they have there, left at Clemson? And maybe they're just having struggling to run the ball. I don't know. Maybe I'm not going to say losing Trevor Lawrence is less important as losing ETN, but.
Oh, well, I was about to say, I mean, and it's nothing against DJU. I mean, we saw him step in last year, but, I mean, he wasn't the guy. He could go out and do anything. Now he's got the full pressure of being Clemson's guy. This, I think, I don't know how many times over the last 4 years, Ryan, we have talked about, not to suck his dick, but Trevor Lawrence and he is God's gift to football.
He's Andrew Luck. He's Peyton Manning. He was the no-brainer into the draft.
Yeah. If he would have came out after his sophomore year, it's no-brainer. He's gonna be the #1 pick. And people expected DJ just to step in and not miss a beat. And I'm sorry, that's just not gonna happen.
Right. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's almost Alabama does a very damn good job of doing that. Jalen Hurts gets out, and then you put Tagovailoa back in,
right.
and he goes out. You put Mac Jones.
Mac Jones.
I mean, these guys, all three of those guys are in the league, and they're
Starting
they're doing
in the league.
they're,
Not
they're
just in the
starters.
league,
They're starters in the league right now. Yeah. And Jalen Hurts, I mean, they did get a loss this weekend, but I mean, he's looked good so far in the NFL season. So
I mean, we kind of claim him a little bit, so it's a little.
Correct. I mean, he's more of an. You're right. He's more of an Oklahoma quarterback than he is an Alabama quarterback. But I mean, like.
And then Bryce Young this year looks real deal. So it's going to be interesting to see Clemson. I mean, is this? I mean, I know it's jumping the gun, but is this I don't want to say downfall, because I still think they're going to be good. But is this the start of us not seeing Clemson go 13-0, 12-0 every year?
Right. And
Maybe they start going.
If that is the case, then does Dabo go out west? And I hope he does go out west. I hope he goes to USC, so that way people stop trying to steal James Franklin. Yeah. I mean, that would be great, but wishful thinking.
Yeah. We'll talk about that here, like real quick. The USC job has come open. Obviously, I'm sure everybody listening to this knows, which is, and we talked about it, Ryan, a little bit in the chat when it happened, of just kind of like that job. I mean, the premiers, the cream of the crop. I think what do we say? It's like Alabama, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Notre Dame.
Alabama.
Those are jobs you get to, and I don't know if I'd put Clemson there yet.
Okay.
Because Clemson, through Dabo, yes, but before Dabo was trash.
Right.
So, I mean, they're going to have to do this through multiple coaches for it to be a holy hell, real deal thing. Those, I think you said it, those are jobs you don't take. You don't leave after you get those jobs, unless you go to the NFL. You get those jobs and you stay. And then we go down the second tier, where Penn State is. I think Texas is there, Michigan. But I do think USC is on that second tier. This is a big-time job.
The reason I would put USC at the top tier, and the reason I say that is because L.A., Southern California, young, hotshot coach that was a offensive coordinator in the NFL that all these NFL teams are looking at, that job in college football that's a premier spot to be. You go to Norman, that's great. Norman's got history. You can go up to
I love it, but it's Norman.
Right, it's Norman. So you can go up to Ann Arbor. You got a job at Michigan. You can go to Tuscaloosa. Well, yeah, you can go to all these places, but Los Angeles is
LA,
a different type of spot, and young coaches being able to recruit that area. I mean, that's a hotbed for players. You're going to make money there and sponsors
especially now with the national, the name and likeness. Good Lord, in LA, you could make a fucking killing.
Yeah, instead of getting some local car dealership, you're getting Google, you're getting Apple, you're getting
fucking Brad Pitt's going to walk out and hand somebody a new car.
Right. Yeah.
And I will say right now why USC is even more intriguing than before is there's nobody else out west. Oregon's decent, but
and that guy's name's on the board too. Mario Cristobal, he might be going too.
But I mean, UCLA. I mean, they just lost this year to Fresno State. They're Arizona State.
Right. I'd like to talk
Stanford,
about that because
Cal.
All three of us were super high on UCLA a week ago, and then they go in and kind of lay an egg against Fresno State. But
yeah, but I mean, there's the West Coast is dying for a team to step up. They're dying for somebody, and that team, because that team usually is USC. And they've been bad. So I think that even gives even more of a boost for something. The big names that I have seen, I think the one that makes the most sense is Luke Fickell. The big knock or kind of question mark is, Luke Fickell is at Cincinnati, and everybody's like, oh, well, he can go to a Power 5 concert. Well, Cincinnati has officially joined the Big 12, and they're going to be a Power 5 team here in the next 2-3 years, and being not a the Big 12 is going to be losing, obviously, Oklahoma and Texas. Cincinnati, if they continue this trend of how they're playing, they're going to come in as one of the top contenders of the Big 12.
Yeah, I think they step in right away. The only reason we say that is because Oklahoma's leaving. If Oklahoma, Texas. I don't have to tell you this, but Texas has not been a worrisome team in the past 10 years. But
if Oklahoma was staying, this would be a different conversation.
Right. And the way that Cincinnati looked early this week, I was on the chat with you guys and talking damn, this might be a really good week for the Big Ten, and Indiana ended up losing to Cincinnati, wasn't
I think it was the second half they turned it on, didn't it?
The second half they turned it on, but it was still close. Michigan State still won, but I think Cincinnati's a great team. I I'd love to. I'm gonna really be interested to see them going into the Big 12 and actually playing those teams year in, year out, and week in, week out.
Yeah, it's a different game.
Right.
It's a whole different ball game.
Yeah, and Fickle, like, he might be gone by the time they even get there. Shit, I mean that's.
Well, yeah, and so, I think the big thing on on Fickle is the AD now for USC was the AD at Cincinnati when he hired Fickle, and now he's moved on to Cincinnati. Or that AD has moved on to USC, and he's going to be calling Fickle.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer. I mean, yeah, you bring the guy in that was successful at Cincinnati. You're there with him, yeah.
Yeah. So the other two big names I've heard, and even betting portals, and James Franklin is one of them.
Yeah.
I don't see it. Like I kind of
either.
said in the chat that I think it is kind of, if it's not a lateral move, it might be a little bit up because of LA, but I mean it's pretty close. It's very, very close. You can argue either way. But the fact that James Franklin has a number one recruiting class coming in, as
of right now, it's number one.
Well,
I mean, they'll probably finish in the top 5. But
yeah, worst case scenario, you end up as a top 5 draft class or recruiting class. Bummer. Yeah. Andy's a Pennsylvania guy. So
Pennsylvania guy, and he's a family guy. Like picking your whole family up, moving your 2 girls and wife out to LA. Like that's a big move. Like I don't know what Fickle's family situation is, or like I don't.
No idea.
Yeah,
Jimmy could tell us.
Yeah, Jimmy could tell us. But like that's why Mario Cristobal is a better option for me. Like I know that's more of a upgrade. If you're going from Oregon, you go to USC. That's a big upgrade. You could probably bring a lot of your recruits that you had from Oregon that are,
The only thing leaving Oregon right now is with the name and likeness, having Nike in your back pocket.
Nike is there, and that's where they started, right? Yeah. So
I mean, yeah, that's the one thing about the other name that came on that we'll kind of go on and start hitting on Penn State. I forgot the name of the Kansas City Chiefs offense coordinator.
Jesus.
God, his name has been brought up a lot.
Bienema.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I don't want to say Jesus Christ. I want to say,
Eric
which is
Bieniemy.
close to Illinois' head coach, which nobody wants him. So
no. So his name has been brought up. It's kind of been like Luke Fickle 1A, Bieniemy 1B. And then Franklin's the one I've been seeing.
Right.
So,
He was a Colorado Buff too.
Well, you know what? This can be interesting. Last point of this, we'll see if USC fucks this up, because every time they fire a coach, or seems like every time they fire a coach, it's in the middle of the season. Last time they did it, they had a coach. They were doing trash. He came in, and I think he took them 5-1. And then they said, you know what? No, we're going to go with this other guy. And then that guy, whose name happens to be Ed Orgeron, goes to LSU and wins a national title.
Yeah,
so
to your point, they played this week, and they put in their second-string quarterback, and they ended up blowing the socks off.
Oh, he's a beast.
He is a beast, and their whole team was fired up. The whole crowd was fired up. Like they looked like a totally. Even the announcers were saying it. This is a totally different team. They got rid of Helton. They put this new coach in. They put a new quarterback in, and the team looks completely different. It's like, why? But we've seen this before at USC. This keeps happening over and over again. Get a guy, stick with a guy, like find the right guy, pay him $1 jabillion because you have it. Like just get it done.
Yeah, so we'll see. This will be interesting to watch, like how this plans out going forward. With that, moving on to our teams. We'll start with the Penn State Nittany Lions. One thing I didn't realize till after the game, but I thought it was pretty cool. Auburn embraced the whiteout for the first time in school history. Had white face masks on their all-white uniforms.
I did see that. That was pretty cool. I mean,
I was like, oh, that's pretty awesome. Because the whiteout is something it's college football known. It is one of the premier things you've got to see. And for Auburn to go, we'll embrace this and we'll rock a white face. I thought that was pretty cool by Auburn.
I think so. It was a cool thing. Auburn came ready to play. I'll say that they came ready to play. They did not look rattled by the crowd. They did have some false starts. They did have some issues caused by the crowd. It looked like, but all in all, that SEC team came there ready to play. Penn State ended up coming out on top. I'll say one thing,
real quick,
and I'm not.
One thing though, like talking about this, about the whiteout. Not saying the whiteout's not loud. Not saying it's not white as fuck. But they were talking about this here, and they're like, oh well, can Auburn deal with the stadium? Like, they haven't been to Death Valley at night. That has literally registered a hurricane. They haven't been to Auburn or to Alabama in the Iron Bowl in Tuscaloosa.
Right.
They've been to hostile environments.
They've been to hostile environments. I mean, I'm not gonna take any, like, the whiteout is different. I don't want to take anything away from SEC.
So the only difference is, the thing is, the whiteout's different. But me and Jimmy were laughing. We're like, yeah, the problem is SEC hostile cards. You're literally scared for your health. Like, you're going to get a beer to the head in Death Valley.
The coordination of the crowd at the whiteout it's something cool to behold.
That's
like
super cool.
One of the 24/7 guys, he did a podcast. I listened to it. He said it was his first time ever being at a whiteout. He was field level, and he said, I've never seen anything like this. I've been to every stadium in the country. Like, it's not just the noise, it's the coordination, it's the whole atmosphere of the whiteout. It's something. It sends chills up your spine, especially if you're an opposing team walking in there and walking through the stadium. Like, it's nuts. But into the game.
Penn State itself.
I'll say this right off the bat before I get into the actual game. The officiating was awful.
You punted on third down.
We punted on third down. There were first of all, it was a intentional grounding call that should never been called, which caused us to punt on third down. There were multiple calls throughout the game. You rarely hear broadcasters like pick on refs because you kind of want to like give them the benefit of the doubt and let them do their thing, but
it's tough. It is a tough job.
It is a tough job, and it was an SEC officiating crew. They came in there, and maybe they've never seen something like that. Maybe they were. I don't know what happened, but for the SEC to issue an apology after the game, and it was widely publicized that they issued an apology saying, "Hey, this crew sucked. We fucked up. We screwed up on the replay in the replay booth. We screwed up everywhere else. Like, it was bad." Thank God Penn State won, so no one's going to talk about it, but it was bad.
That's water on the bridge, like whatever.
Right. 2 years ago, we talked, or I guess it was last year, Ross, we talked about what type of player is Sean Clifford, and I said he would be closer to what he was, and I said Penn State would be closer to what they were 2 years ago when they won 11 games. They lost Minnesota, whatever that was. Last year was a complete wash, in my opinion. I don't want to talk about last year. That was a complete wash, COVID year.
Of course, because you started 0-5, so I get
correct.
That.
There you go. So, so that's a complete wash, in my opinion. But I think Sean Clifford has been on point. He made one mistake at the end of the first half there. It happens. He's trying to make a play, gets hit while he's throwing. It's an interception. Besides that, he's been on point all year long. Yurcich offense has taken over. I think Sean Clifford is completely bought into it. We are working in multiple players. Like, we saw those tight ends that I talked to you about. Like, we were talking about cowboy backs and all that. And it's like, yeah, we got like 3 or 4 guys that could fill that position. Yeah, all 3 of them, like, it's Brenton Strange, Theo Johnson, and the other guy that ran for a touchdown out of the Wildcat. He played quarterback in high school. He's like the 3rd or 4th string tight end. They all look great. I mean, Jahan Dotson looks like he's probably, as of right now, and Jimmy's going to hate me for saying this, I think he might be the best wide receiver in the Big Ten. He's fighting for that position.
I think it's arguable.
Yeah, and he might be one of the best receivers in college football. Like, at the end of the day, he might be.
Side note: a year ago, I said that exact same thing. Just
okay.
FYI.
Well, that's why I love you, Ross. Running game.
So that's what I want to get to. The next thing you're about to hit on is what I like. Don't get me wrong. So what I've watched so far. So caught the highlights of the Auburn game, and I kept up with it. The thing. Obviously, I did not watch Ball State. No offense, I just didn't.
Yep. Understandable.
And then in the Wisconsin game, I recorded and I kind of went back and watched the highlights. I think Sean Clifford, like in my pregame or preseason thing, I said you would go as far as Sean Clifford was willing to take you.
Yep.
So we knew your defense was going to pretty much be legit.
Yep.
There's a couple questions, but regardless, a Penn State defense with question marks is still a pretty damn good defense.
Right.
And that's what it's showing. I think Sean Clifford is playing very well.
Protecting the ball, I mean, that's like number one.
Yeah, don't turn the ball over.
Yep.
But your running game needs to, I don't know what the hell is going on. But, I mean, granted, it's kind of thing like I'm picking nose hairs, because, you are 3-0, and you've beaten Wisconsin, you've beaten Auburn, and Ball State, but that doesn't count. But, I mean, looking at the stats, so this year, against Ball State, which, again, we're not going to count Ball State. So against Ball State, you ran for 240 yards. If you take that out, you ran for 130 yards in 2 games.
Correct. And
Which we talked about this not this, but like coming to this season, we were like, man, this 5-headed monster of running backs in Penn State. We're like, Jesus Christ, like at the very least, they're going to be able to just pound it up your ass. And, there's nothing you can do about it. And they really haven't. I mean, when we talk about like the 5-headed monster, it's not a 5-headed monster. It's Noah Cain.
Okay, so let me hold on one sec. We played Wisconsin and Auburn. You take the game where we had almost 250 yards rushing out of the thing. So we got Wisconsin and Auburn, who are probably going to go down in the top 10 in the country in rushing defense in the year. Like, those are 2 big boys that can stop the run. So this is where the stats kind of like, they make sense all the way through. It's like, we play against Ball State, we run the shit out of the ball. We play against Wisconsin, who's a stiff interior defensive like powerhouse, and same with Auburn. I mean, they got big boys in the middle. You take what the defenses give you and you go from there. But like throughout the year, let's talk in 4 or 5 weeks and see how the running game's going. The one good thing about the running game that I like is it's not just Noah Cain. I mean, Noah Cain did have 19 carries this week, which is a lot compared to everybody else on the team. But I mean, your boy from the Big 12, John Lovett, he played like there. He was in the game over and over again in the fourth quarter in crunch time when it's a tight game. Like John Lovett came in, fresh legs, caught a big pass, had a big run like that. Like the ability for Penn State to mix in different runners when they need them, and to have Sean Clifford run the read option and take it off when he can. I just think the stats right now are kind of weird because we have played these big interior defensive, like stop the running game type of teams.
I think Wisconsin, I'll definitely buy in for you on Wisconsin on that. Auburn, I'm not saying no and I'm not saying yes. I'm saying they've played 2 D2 schools in you.
Correct.
So let's kind of wait to see what they could do.
Right, and I will say this: I will give props to Auburn. I have a buddy, my buddy Matt, is a coworker of mine. He's a huge Auburn guy. We bet dinner on the game. So next time I'm flying into Denver, he's got to buy me dinner, which is great because I'm gonna rack that bill.
Steaks.
But I think Auburn is better than. I mean, everyone looked at them. They played 2 teams. I mean, people say Akron is probably the worst team in the FBS. Like the worst team in the FBS. They beat the shit out of them. Then they beat an FCS team. And then they played. State. Yeah. So we'll see how Auburn is. I think Auburn's a fucking good team. I think they're a really good team. I think that they're gonna.
Here's the problem, though. Here's the problem.
They have one of the hardest schedules in college football, but
like I'm looking at I just pulled up their schedule. It's not by the end of the season. It's not going to show that. And I'm not saying they're not a good team, just because. But I mean, they play Georgia, Arkansas, Ole Miss, A&M, in back-to-back weeks.
Yeah.
And then they have Mississippi State, who's no pushover, South Carolina, and then finish obviously with Alabama.
But if they go 2-2 in that 4-game stretch, if they go 2-2, and you're like, man, shit, they beat Arkansas and they beat Arkansas and whatever. Like that's a good team.
Yes.
Like that is a good team. It's just the SEC is super strong right now, obviously, like they are every single year. And
just wait for 4 years. I mean, I'm not saying
we can admit that.
Wait about 4.
On that note, I got to toss this in really quick because I glossed over this as Jimmy said it this weekend. Ross is very. 1.5 years from now or 2 years from now, Ross is going to be an SEC fanboy, and it's going to suck. And I'm not looking forward to it. We always, this is what's best about the Boom Buck and Blue podcast is we can talk shit about the SEC and no one's there to defend themselves. But now we got a shithead going to the SEC. But
well, that's true. I will be a SEC boy, but I am born and bred Big 8, Big 12.
There you go.
And I'll always have a soft spot for the Big 12. Yeah. I always will. It's the conference I grew up.
So let me finish on Penn State. So defense looks good. Jaquan Brisker is one of the best players in college football. He's going to prove it over and over again in every week in and week out. That guy's a warrior. He's great. He's awesome. Sean Clifford is playing lights out. We just got to hope for that. None of those down games. Ohio State looks beatable. Michigan looks better this year, and they're going to be coming to Happy Valley in a whiteout.
Michigan State.
Michigan State looks good. We play them last game of the year. There's a lot, and we got Lansing. Iowa thrown in there, Indiana thrown in there. So we have some tough games the rest of the year. But Penn State looks great.
Not next week, though.
No, not next week. We got Villanova next week. So Yeah. Usually we get that in the first week, but we had Wisconsin first week, so we kind of got a really tough. I mean, that's what like Penn State fans are saying. Like we got a big tough stretch of football out of the way. We had Wisconsin, and then we had Auburn after that, which is great. Right. Like, and we came out of that 3-0. If we would have came out of that 1-2, I would have said, hey, it makes sense. Those teams are good. Penn State, didn't look that good or whatever, but we're 3-0. We got the number 6 ranking in the country. I think it's deserved. I think they look good. I think they look good all over the place. Defense looks good. Special teams looks good. Offense looks great. We go as far as Sean Clifford could take us, and he looks like he's the guy this year. And that's all. That's my Penn State rant, and I'm done.
Yeah. No, I can't argue on anything about that. I think y'all are going to have to come to play because you do have a tough schedule ahead of you. A lot of tough games, but there's not any, like, seeing what Ohio State and the problems that they're having, there's no game now on your schedule I don't think you have a chance to win. Like, walking into this season and kind of what we thought Ohio State was going to be, I was like, yeah, good luck. Like, it's game, it's college football, anything could happen.
Yeah,
but I was like, yeah, good luck.
To be honest, week 1, like, did you think Penn State had a chance week 1?
No, I picked Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're going to be very interesting to watch moving forward. And that kind of, what you said kind of builds in a lot, like moving into Oklahoma. And obviously, being here in Norman, I listen to sports talk radio. All they do is sit here and talk about OU and everybody bitching. And for any OU fans out there
that were sitting in section 3A, whatever it was.
Any of you Oklahoma fans out there, RELAX.
Yep.
Relax. Okay, you guys, I mean, I've been sitting here listening to people fucking bitch and moan about the Tulane game and, I mean, directional Carolina that we played, whatever that would count. But Nebraska, okay. I think the most important thing is, first off, over the last, Ryan, 5-6 years, Oklahoma's problem has been the defense. Like bad defense. Our defense so far this year is, even in those games, so there is one quarter against Tulane that we shit the bus. Other than that one quarter, we have allowed, I think, 29 points in 3 games. We held Nebraska under 20. We held Nebraska under 100 yards rushing.
Yep.
Martinez had some throws that I've never seen him do in his fucking life.
And he had some throws
Jesus Christ.
And he had some throws that we've seen over and over again to some of your players.
Yeah. I saw, I was talking to some of the Nebraska guys when I was leaving the game, and I was like, yeah, that over-the-shoulder 40-yard bomb, on a dime. He's like, yeah, we haven't seen that in 4 years. I don't know where the hell that came from, but it was the best pass of his entire life.
One of the more painful things to watch it, because everybody wants Nebraska to be good. I am a Big Ten fan. I want Nebraska to be good. Ross is I'm not going to speak for you, but I'm pretty sure you want Nebraska to be good as well. That's good for college football to have that powerhouse.
Nebraska's
in the
the
Midwest.
same as Texas and USC and Miami. College football's better when Nebraska's good.
Yeah. And how I feel like Martinez has been there 15 years, and it's like, how have you not got another quarterback in there? You had McCaffrey there. I don't know where he went. Maybe he just didn't work out.
For the record, I actually ran into the same thing. The Nebraska fan corrected me on it, and I understood it because I was like the same. I was like, Adrian Martinez has been there for 75 fucking years. What the hell? He's like, yeah, that's what a lot of people think, but you forgot we had a Taylor Martinez that quarterbacked right before him.
Oh,
he's
shit,
like, so we literally had Martinez and Martinez. He's like, so a lot of people think he's been here forever. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes a lot. Yeah. I was like, okay, that makes sense.
Well, we're just racist, I guess, because we think Martinez. Anyone named Martinez, yeah.
Right. How many Martinez quarterbacks can there be? But but looking at it, our defense this year, I think, I think they're playing very well, and it's our offense that's struggled. Which, okay,
Well, that's not okay. That's weird. That's
well, it is and it's not. Last year, we struggled on offense, like just kind of Spencer Rattler turning the ball over, not really running the ball, and then after Texas, all of a sudden we just caught fire, and here we go. 4 or 5 years ago, when you came here, or not when you, yeah, when you came here for the Ohio State game, right? We lost to Houston. Then the next week we lost to Ohio State, and then they decided to give Joe Mixon and Samaj P running the ball 40 times each, and we caught fire. This time last year, right? I don't know if the same week, but after week 3, actually, before I go here, the OU team that played Florida in the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah.
I would have put that team against anybody in the country, including Alabama. Not saying we would have won them, but we would have given them a run.
Wait, that's the OU or the Ohio State game in Norman?
No, last year.
Last year. Yeah.
Last year, remember when we smoked Florida in the bowl game? Like, they didn't belong on the same field. It was just stupid. And it started after Spencer Rattler got sat in Texas. Then we got caught on fire, right?
Oh yeah.
So that team. This time last year, that OU team was 1-2, coming off a loss to Kansas State and Iowa State. So they were 1-2. We are 3-0, and if I had to pick a team on week 3, last year's OU team or this team, which team would I feel more confident in? I'd pick this OU team.
So the only thing I'll ask about that, who's your running back last year?
Well, so it was Pledger. It was at the time it was Pledger. He's transferred now to Utah, and then Ramondre Stevenson, he came in at week 6. Is when he came in.
Do you guys have a guy that this is the thing with Oklahoma. Everybody looks at Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray and Spencer Rattler, and they just forget about that offense goes through the run game. Like that is
100% does.
That is a run heavy. I'm not saying run heavy, but if the running game doesn't work, then the whole field doesn't open up. And that's when we get to see this Kyler Murray lighting shit up, and Baker lighting shit up, and doing all these crazy things.
Oh, 100%. And I wouldn't say it's run heavy, but if you look at it on average, every year OU runs the ball about 150 to 200 times more than they pass. Right. It's usually the average.
And the running backs average 10 yards a carry, and you guys win by 80. It's
right.
So you guys have those running backs this year, though. Then we've talked about your running back situation in previous podcasts.
So we have, and so this is the first time. So against Nebraska, which again, it's Nebraska.
They're awful. That's the other thing. Like, as a Big Ten fan, we played them more than you have in the past 5-10 years. Nebraska's an awful team, and they have been awful, and they're not good. So I'm not taking anything away from the win against, or the OU's win against Nebraska, but
against Nebraska, we ran for 200 yards and averaged 5.5 yards a carry against Nebraska.
That's good.
Yeah, that's and that's what it is. The difference is we didn't have the explosive plays on the offense or on the passing game. Because most of the time we'll do this running game, and that's about average for us running ball. And then passing, we bust these 50-yarders.
Right, because they start worrying about the run game. You get the play action. You get Spencer Rattler doing his thing where he flicks it 80 yards.
And Nebraska just didn't care. They're like, you could get 5.5 yards of carry. I don't give a shit. You're not going to beat us over the top at all.
What does that worry you? That other, if that's the key to success, if that's a key to hold OU under 35 or 40 points,
honestly, it is the key. Why? Because that runs the clocks. It keeps our offense off the field.
Yep.
That is the key. But if we're averaging 5.5 yards a carry, no, that doesn't worry me at all. We do have Eric Gray, who's a fantastic running back out of Tennessee, and Kennedy Brooks, who has played 2 full seasons and had over 1,000 yards in each season. We have the backs, just Lincoln is scared to use them. Because the reason we talked about, we lose one, then all of a sudden we're literally as our backup, we're playing a walk-on.
Yep.
So, I get people like I'm going to steal a line from the franchise, which is the thing or the sports talk I listen to. They said it today, and I agree. I mean, the problem is walking into this season, and it just isn't OU, it was the country. Walking into the season, OU fans were guaranteed jetpacks and hovering cars. And we haven't got that yet.
Right.
But we're still 3-0. And so...
Well,
and
we talked
like
about this weekend. Do you think that Lincoln is pumping the brakes on putting running backs out there and running the ball as much, and because he knows if he loses one running back, he's down to one. Like then he's pulling off practice squad guys, or he's pulling off redshirt freshmen, or whatever he's doing. Like, do you think he's slow rolling the offense? And
I think he is. I think he is. Which.
That's a scary thing to do. I mean, that's a ballsy coaching move to do. By the way,
and he admitted that he was not as aggressive in this play calling that he has been in the years past. And he said in his press conference, he's like, "I'm going to fix that. Like that's on me, and I'm going to fix it."
And that's like so weird when coaches talk about aggressive play calling, they're not talking about like using running backs and running the clock or like and trying to get like you know what I mean. That's a totally when they talk about aggressive play calling is. Putting
deep shots,
quarterback out there running, bootlegs and putting the ball down the field. Like his aggressive play calling is utilizing running backs, which is different.
running backs, getting him out in the swing plays, getting him out like and all this stuff. But and to finish on OU, kind of like what you were talking about, like and what I said, kind of leading into the OU is, Penn State now and 3 weeks in the season, we got a lot of football to play.
Yep.
But we were talking about like the potential wins. And people are bitching about OU. And again, I get it. Jetpacks, floating cars, I get it. But we're 3-0. And even the way they're playing right now.
You can still get those jetpacks.
Looking at the top 10, and I'm not saying that OU's guaranteed to win. I'm saying I'm going to list the top 10. And we're saying not guaranteed to win, but they got a shot to win. It would be a ball game. So Alabama and Georgia right now, no, I would not put Oklahoma against them right now.
Nope.
Get beat.
But I mean, the thing is, like, is there anybody in the Big 12 that you think Oklahoma can't beat? Like, the answer is no. Like, they could beat anybody still.
Right.
Yeah, they struggled so far in 3 weeks, but they're still 3-0, and they can still beat anybody.
But the way the college football in general is playing, Alabama and Georgia, okay. But then after that, Oregon, Iowa, Penn State, Texas A&M, Cincinnati, Clemson, Ohio State, Florida. That's the next 10 teams.
Yep.
Like, again, I'm not saying OU would run away with any of those, but they got a shot.
Yeah, those are football games. Those are
right.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, OU fans out there, like I said, relax. Like, we're not playing fantastic, but minus 2 teams in the country, we got a shot against anybody else. Like, and give us time to get rolling. We're going to be fine.
Yep.
We're going to be fine.
To roll into the next topic, if I can, Ross.
Yep, absolutely.
I don't have as much confidence with Ohio State as I do with Oklahoma.
I would agree with that. Let's hit on Ohio State for a little bit. We know Jimmy's going to obviously jump into it a lot.
You want to let Jimmy go first, or?
Well, yeah. Well, let's give it a second. Well, actually, no. I'm going to take off. Well, let's go first, and then Jimmy can comment on what we're saying.
Okay.
So we're go. So Ohio State, their defense is not there. It's trash. Yep. They're going to have some issues, especially with a Penn State offense that runs it around. They do have their running backs. They're going to have problems. Michigan State's running back, legit issues. We'll see what happens. Michigan's offense right now does not look too shabby.
Michigan is the talk of the town in the big. I mean, outside of Penn State, they're one of the. I mean, I see articles with Michigan saying, "Hey, they figured it out," which I've seen it before. We all know this.
We've heard this plenty of times. From
their ability to go 1 week running the. I mean, this is kind of the Penn State story. It's like 1 week they can run the ball, next week they can pass the ball. They can kind of interchange. It's like it looks like Michigan's offense is back to their roots and back to pounding the ball. I think they've ran for like 1,100 yards or something like that in 3 games. They haven't done that since like 2010 or something like that. Like. They are running the shit out of the ball.
Oh,
they do look a lot better.
Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong. Like if you just look at the stats against Tulsa, and Tulsa this year is not a good team. They are not a good team. They are 0-3.
This was at the shoe, by the way.
Yeah, at the shoe. Tulsa 0-3. They've lost to Oklahoma State, who's not that great, and then UC Davis.
I mean, that's a powerhouse on the East Coast.
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously, huge powerhouse. But I mean, Tulsa had them 20, or Ohio State was up 27-20 with, like, I don't know, was it third quarter?
Yeah, something like that. That was a close game pretty much the whole way through. Yeah.
Yeah, then Ohio State, got a touchdown, got a pick six, and then game's over. But, I mean, for a long time, I was like, holy shit. I had that game on. I was like, holy shit, Tulsa might pull this off.
Yeah. They lack pass rush. They lack physicality almost, which is kind of weird with Ohio State. Like, usually they're extremely physical. Their defense is ready to go. Now you got question marks on the defensive coordinator. I know Ryan Day came out after the game and says the defensive coordinator didn't call plays on the defense. That's right. I've never heard that before in my life. I've never heard a defensive coordinator not calling the defensive plays. So I don't know what was going on there.
So, I don't know did they say who was calling plays?
I
saw that they said.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Zach Harrison was out. Zach Harrison did not play that game, and I think they were missing 8 or 9 guys on defense. I don't know if not on defense, but total they're missing a bunch of guys. But for them for that talent that Ohio State has, for them to go out and put that performance against Tulsa is embarrassing, to be honest.
Yeah, the two things though I will take are 3 things. First is your defense is trash, Jimmy. You've admitted it. Your defense is trash. You got to do something. I don't know what it is. Got to fucking do something. Number 2, I don't think C.J. Stroud's the guy. I don't think he's a bad quarterback. And actually, I'd probably say he's a good quarterback. But from what we've seen from Ohio State quarterbacks, going back to Justin Fields and Dwayne Haskins.
I mean, you go back very far. Dwayne Haskins, Braxton Miller,
Braxton, all these guys, like JT
Barrett.
They just have these fantastic, and CJ Stroud's good, but it's if you look at his stats, the stats aren't bad by any means. But when I watch him play, again, this is I'm stealing from the franchise, and this is the funniest quote, but it's true. Talking about how do you know what porn is? You just know when you see it. Right? You just know when you see it. You don't. You're just like, oh, yeah, that's porn. Yeah, okay. You know when you see it. How do I know C.J. Stroud's not the guy? I've watched a lot of football, and I just don't see it. I see it, and I'm like, yeah, that's not the guy. That's not the guy.
Do you want to know what I see? I see the first week of the year, I saw a guy that was tentative but calm. The next 2 weeks, I saw a guy that was tentative and I could see his head was going a mile a minute every single second he had the ball in his hands. I thought him being – because you watch C.J. Stroud, you watch him play he's just level-headed all the time and doing his thing and just very calm and smooth and does his thing. I don't think it's that – I don't think it's he has everything together anymore. I think that he is – that's just the way he expresses it. He's just I don't really know what to do, so I'm just going to stay calm. You know what I mean? Some quarterbacks can get away with that. You watch quarterbacks that are just calm in the pocket and just smooth, but know what to do. When I see C.J. Stroud should run the ball, he doesn't run the ball. When I see that he should throw it away, he tries to hold on to the ball too much and he takes a sack. Every time, he just doesn't seem like he's figured it out yet. And once again, that's a team that's 3-0, or I guess they're 2-1. I mean, they did lose.
Yeah, they're 2-1. They've lost. They're in trouble.
They are in trouble. And they're going to run into some better teams in Tulsa, that's for sure. Yeah.
Well, and, the thing about C.J. Stroud, again, I think he's a good quarterback. And on a lot of teams, that would suffice. But when you're Ohio State, and behind him you have 5-star, or maybe a 4-star, Kyle McCord, and 4-star Jack Miller, and then you have Quinn Ewers. Yeah. All of these guys sitting on the bench. I mean... Come on.
When your job at Ohio State is to not fucking win a game, your job is to hand the ball off to Henderson and throw five and ins to these stud wide receivers that Ohio State has. Like, your job is not to go out there and just like torch everybody. Your job is to give the ball to the playmakers and get it done. You know, and it's not a crazy, intricate offense that he has to run there. Like, you know who you got to get the ball to. You know you don't have to throw these dimes down the seam. You know, like, you don't have to do these crazy things. You just have to get rid of the ball. You know.
So I will say, my third thing about Ohio State is, and I don't know if I said it on here, but I definitely said it in the chat. Starting week one, because you guys were like getting not mad at me, but I kept saying when they were playing Minnesota, give Travion Henderson the fucking ball. Give him the damn ball. Give him the damn ball. Finally, against Tulsa, they decided to give him 24 carries, and he had almost 300 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Ohio State found their, I don't want to say building block because Ohio State doesn't really build, but they've found their cornerstone.
They found their cornerstone.
Henderson,
But
Master Teague, those other guys, they're not bad, but he's the guy.
When Michigan State, Michigan, and Penn State stack the box and force their quarterback to throw, and they know that C.J. Stroud's there, and they know that he's been struggling all year long, like, what is Ohio State going to do?
No, absolutely. You know? Ohio State has to figure out.
They have to get that balance,
game. But Travion Henderson moving forward, I do not envy Penn State having to go against this dude for the next 2-3 years. Like, he is so good. He runs hard, he's fast as hell, and he makes great cuts. I think that dude's a stud.
Yeah, and
like an absolute stud.
He seems to be playing above his above his age. You know what I mean? Like, he looks like he's a junior, and he's a true freshman. So
yeah. Oh yeah, and lastly on Ohio State. Sorry. And we'll kind of get into the picks and everything. I mean, when you're like with Stroud, I hate to keep going back and harper on this gig because he's young, but I mean, against Tulsa Hurricanes, you threw for 185 yards on 25 attempts with a receiving core that everybody said was the best receiving core in the country, and I still agree. Garrett Wilson's incredibly talented. Smith and Jigba is fantastic. Julian Fleming, Travion Henderson coming out of the back.
Well, Julian Fleming has been non-existent. That's as a Penn State fan, that pisses me off because if he was at Penn State, he'd be getting the ball a lot more. But I mean,
because you have Johan Dotson, so I don't know.
I mean, yeah. But he's behind a lot of guys out there at Ohio State, and he just seems like he's the fourth guy now because you have Njigba and you have Wilson and you have.
And they're utilizing their tight end. Rutgers getting some passes. So we'll see what happens. I mean, it's going to be interesting watching Ohio State because they do also, because you guys are on the same side, they got the same little gauntlet. They have to play Penn State, Michigan State, Michigan. They do avoid Iowa.
Yeah.
Luckily. But, they've got some tough games. This next week, they're playing Akron, so they're going to rack up the score, and everybody's going to be back to... Oh, I'm sorry, they play Akron, then Rutgers. So they have 2 games in a row that they're going to be back to...
And Maryland, as much as... I mean, I bring this up now more than Jimmy, but because Jimmy says that Maryland beat Texas 15 years ago, and it's a big deal. But
I loved it. I still bring that up.
Yeah, I know. But, I mean, Maryland's in the same boat as... I mean, Maryland did win this week, but, like, they do have an easy stretch there. Akron, Rutgers, Maryland... They play at Bloomington against Indiana, and then they play Penn State at the Shoe. They do have their games spread out a little bit better than most teams. I mean, Michigan State and Michigan at the end of the year is going to be tough, but
yeah,
we'll see if they get it turned around by then.
Yeah. So now we're going to pass it to Jim. Obviously, here are his 2 cents on Ohio State and everything we talked about. So.
Hey everybody, it's Jimmy again, checking in from my undisclosed location in Southwest Asia. As usual, this is week 4, like Ross said, ? And that's very likely going to be the name of this episode. Yeah, we did miss last week, but I'm going to get right into it, going to kind of cover everything real quick, just do some national coverage. One thing that the boys did not cover when I was listening to them, I was talking about Georgia. We've talked about Georgia's defense and how Georgia's defense is phenomenal. It's still one of the best defenses in the entire country. Um, but one thing that we noticed after week one is they lost JT Daniels. And last year, their offense was not going well. Their defense was really good. And everybody was calling for JT Daniels to come in. Um, they got JT Daniels week one. They didn't score a single offensive touchdown, and he's been out. And the past 2 weeks, Georgia's offense has exploded. Last week they went 40. They dropped 40 against South Carolina and 56 points the week prior. Granted, it's South Carolina, and then the week prior at 56, it's UAB. But still, that's offense. That's good offense. If your offense is struggling, you don't score 56 points against a bad team. If your offense is struggling, you score 35. And we'll go over struggling offenses a little bit later. But one thing that I did want to talk about with Clemson, I completely agree about Clemson. Offensively, no idea what's going on. They lost ETN, they lost Lawrence. But one thing that wasn't brought up that the boys talked about was in 2019, their offensive coordinator that they've had forever, Jeff Scott, left to go be the head coach at Southern Florida. And in 2019, they were ranked fifth on offense in the entire country. 2019, they're ranked 10th, which isn't bad. It's not bad. It's great. You're top 10 offensive team in the entire country. And I think that might have been kept up there because they still had Trevor Lawrence. They still had Travis Etienne. But this year, they're currently ranked 114th in the entire country. And I know we're only 3 weeks in. It's a brand new starting quarterback, but it's Clemson. Like, they got talent all over that field. They recruit up a storm, and they might rival, in terms of recruitment, they might rival Alabama in total talent on the field in general. Like, that's what Clemson does is they recruit. And when Ross says, like, Clemson being not one of those jobs that people clamor for right now, I agree with that because you've got to go by coach by coach by coach. But at this point, it's going to be interesting because Dabo Swinney has been able to hold on to his coordinator for so long. Jeff Scott forever. Now he's gone. Eventually, Brett Venables is going to be a hot commodity as a head coach somewhere else. As being one of the best, if not the best, defensive coordinator in the entire country. And it's gonna be interesting to see how he does. That's what makes Nick Saban so great. Nick Saban has had a ridiculous amount of coaches and coordinators working for him, and they continue to be great. So we're gonna see how that goes, and we're gonna see how it goes with other teams who are dealing with the same thing. Which again, we'll cover a little bit later. Also, one more thing I want to talk about Dabo Swinney's a post I saw today. They're making it looks like that their awesome opening, their awesome entry into when they run down the hill, they touch the rock and they run down the hill, one of the best in the entire country. I hate it because I hate Clemson, but I saw a post, and I'm not sure if this is something that just happened the one time or if it happens every time, but there's a video of him running down the hill ahead of his team and making it look like it's all about himself. And I have no idea. Like I said, I have no idea if that's normal. And it's normal for a head coach to run out onto a field with his team. At Ohio State, Jim Tressel did it forever. Then Urban Meyer, and now Ryan Day does it. But he's like a good 20 yards ahead of all of them, and he's sprinting, right? And I listen. I hate Clemson. I hate them with a burning passion because they're sort of a outside of the conference rival with Ohio State right now, and I'm very biased against Clemson and Dabo, but that it's just a weird look. I'll go take a look for it. If you haven't seen it, go take a look and just give us your thoughts. And on our Facebook page or on YouTube when this is up on YouTube, just anything that you think. Maybe I'm crazy because I am biased against Clemson, but anyway, moving on. Alabama. They'll figure it out. They're fine. They're Alabama. Like I said, I talked about him being able to figure things out. And if it doesn't work out, he's going to crack some skulls and he's going to get the people in there that needs to be in there. USC job. The boys talked about who they feel like could possibly be the next head coach there at USC. They felt that Fickle was the obvious choice or the best choice right now. because, well, Ryan, because he doesn't want James Franklin to leave. And they weren't sure about Luke Fickell's situation at Cincinnati. I will tell you this right now. I don't know him personally, but in terms of people who do know him personally and have come out and talked about the USC job and Luke Fickell's not going anywhere. That man is a Ohio guy through and through. Roots in Ohio deep. He's got wives. His wife and his kids have roots in Ohio. He's from Ohio. His wife's from Ohio. Family's all in Ohio. You're gonna have to pull back up the Brinks truck and a tree derooter to be able to get him out of Cincinnati. And considering that they are going to essentially be a Power Five team in a couple of years, I think he's just going to stick his ground there. And he's got success there. He's getting paid well. I don't see him leaving for that USC job. I could be completely wrong, but in terms of convenience, I don't think that's going to happen. One name that the boys did not bring up, which I was surprised considering how much Ross has a hard on for this guy, Matt Campbell, or Campbell, or Campbell. I'm gonna say Campbell because Campbell's soup, Campbell's chunky soup. Um, he's a big name. Like I don't know his situation in Iowa State. I know he's from Ohio, so it's not like he's got family in Iowa, as I'm sure it'd be difficult for his wife and his kids to move out to California, and it's a completely different, to go from Ames to Los Angeles. It's a big culture shock, but he is a big name at a Power Five school and has a lot of success. So I would say um, Bienemy that the boys brought up from I think it was Bienemy is his name. I looked it up and I think I spelled it right and pronouncing it properly. I would hope so because he deserves it. He's a great offensive coordinator in Kansas City. If he doesn't take an NFL head coaching job, which is a for sure possibility, I could see him going there. Obviously not till the end of the season. Um, or Matt Campbell. I think Matt Campbell's an excellent choice for USC. It's a change in mindset. When Pete Carroll was there, their defense was phenomenal on top of their offense as well. But that's one thing that Matt Campbell does is strong defense, physicality. You know, 4 yards in a cloud of dust, kind of football, and I can appreciate that. I don't know how much the LA fans, the USC fans will like that, but if it translates to wins, I don't think they'll care. But so yeah, that's really all I have for national coverage. I'm going to move right into my thoughts on Penn State, uh, the boys teams. I'm going to start with Penn State, and to be honest with you, I haven't seen a lot of their games live. It's really hard to watch games out here because they're either at 10:30, they're either at, let's see, 7 o'clock, 10:30, or 2:30 in the morning. And I think I watched Penn State Wisconsin live because it was an early game, it was a noon game, and the rest of the games have been either at the same time as Ohio State or at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm not, Ryan, I love you, but I'm not going to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to watch Clemson play, even though it is a gigantic game for the Big Ten. And by the way, thank you, Penn State, from the rest of the Big Ten for beating an SEC team. That is a notch on the belt. That's a thing. It's a hook to hang your hat on. Definitely makes the Big Ten conference look better. Um, Also, by the way, Ryan, I heard you had your agreement with your buddy in your Auburn fan buddy in Colorado, and I'm saying, like, where's my gift basket, bro? We had a $50 bet on that Penn State Ohio State game last year, and I'm still waiting on my gift basket. I mean, I'll be back in January, and I'll be expecting that gift basket when I get back. That's all I'm saying. But beyond that, Sean Clifford, I looked into him a little bit on his stats. He is playing very well. Overall, he's got 4 touchdowns and 1 interception. And that 1 interception was against a pretty good Auburn. And Ryan, I think, encompassed it well. It was a tough throw. He probably shouldn't throw it, and it was a mistake. But it wasn't a mistake that ultimately ended up in the game. Um, and they're ranked 36 overall in passing yards. And I do want to say that I do think Auburn is really good, and their record is not going to show it. They got to go through an incredible gauntlet. But overall, like, Penn State's kind of an enigma. They're not blow your doors off or blow your hair back great on offense. They're just really balanced, and they're winning small battles, right? They're ranked 75 overall in total yards, 106 in rushing, and 42 in passing. But like I said, it's good enough, right? They're still able to win battles and beat a very good Auburn team, and they're really strange. I'm really interested to see how they're going to do against other teams moving forward. Again, like Ross said, they've got that they can sit back and relax. They're probably going to get a lot of their backups playing this week. They're playing Villanova, and then Rutgers, I think, was the next one after that. So, oh no, I think that was Ohio State. Anyway, we're moving on. I did want to touch on the whiteout. It is, without a doubt, one of the coolest things in college football. It's one of the best new age traditions in college football, up there with jump around, with the wave in the fourth quarter in Iowa City. But overall, the record under the whiteout, it's not great. Uh, Going into the Auburn night game, the win-loss record for Penn State during whiteout games was 8-8. Now they're 9-8, so they're one game over 500, and it's super cool. It's one of the coolest visuals in the entire sport. But in terms of intimidation, in comparison to like what Ross said with Death Valley, it's not that intimidating because the records don't reflect the intimidation factor. So, also, I did want to touch on the Jahan Dotson and Olave argument. Dotson right now is ranked 43 overall in receiving yards, and Olave is ranked 44 in receiving yards. And Dotson is the only top tier wide receiver at Penn State. Olave is the best of three really good wide receivers, Garrett Wilson being the other one, and Jackson Smith-Njigba being the third, and Jeremy Ruckert. And he's still right below right below Jahan Dotson for receiving yards. So it could be argued that Dotson is good, but he's getting more targets than Olave. And in my opinion, I would probably argue that maybe David Bell out of Purdue is better. But again, he's the only wide receiver out of there. So I agree with Ryan. I agree with Ross. It's arguable whether Dotson is the best. Obviously, I'm biased towards Olave being the best. Because he is. So moving on to OU. Again, not a lot. Haven't seen a lot of games live with OU because either they're at the same time as Ohio State or they're just too late. The other one was a pay-per-view. Hey, OU, get better. Also, I don't think when they actually do move to the SEC, I looked into it. There is no Big 12 network, right? There hasn't been because Texas doesn't want to get on board. They don't want to lose their Longhorn network. But Texas and Texas and OU going to the SEC, that means they are now a part of the SEC network. I don't foresee them not having any any pay-per-view games, which again, it's stupid. OU, be better. Overall, Oklahoma's run defense is very good. They average under 100 yards per game, ranked 21 overall. Oh, and Oklahoma State both ranked in the top 30 in rushing defense. Like, has anybody even could they fathom that at the same time? Oklahoma and Oklahoma State are very good on defense right now. Now I say that, and OU's passing defense is bad. But overall, not as bad as Ohio State. I will say that. But overall, they're ranked 46 total in total yards allowed and 32, and ranked 32 in points allowed. So again, they're right there on defense as they were, if not a little bit better than they were last year. So we're going to see how that's going to be moving forward because they got a full slate of games. They're playing everybody this year, and we'll see how that goes. And when it comes down to OU on offense and the state of their offense this year, OU has been spoiled for the past 5 years. And Ross, I know you would agree with me on this one. They've been absolutely spoiled at the quarterback position on offense. In particularly the last 5 years or so, 3 Heisman quality quarterbacks, two of them won the Heisman back to back. Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray, and then Jalen Hurts was a finalist. The year that Kyler was there, his Heisman Trophy winning year, they were in the record books for yards per game. And now it's ranked 28th at 6 yards per game. At 6.8 yards per game, ranked overall on average. That's still really good, right? Like it's not OU good, but it's still really good. It's top 30 in offense in the entire nation, right? So there are things that are small issues, and particularly Lincoln afraid to run the running backs, which I agree with. Um, but and they're still ranked no, six overall in scoring. Like I agree with Ross on this one. OU fans need to relax. Like it'll be fine. Like you guys don't have anybody major. I mean, you got Texas, which is always a crapshoot, and then you've got your annual nail biter against Kansas State. So we'll see how it goes. And Iowa State's going to be a really tough one again this year. But I don't see a whole lot of teams that are going that I don't look at OU schedule and I think, oh, that's a team that's definitely going to beat OU. I think OU could definitely win it out. They're the class of the Big 12 this year, and they're very likely going to win and make it to the playoffs. Okay, now we get to my boys, the Buckeyes, Ohio State. And Ross, you were absolutely correct. I am not happy about the state of Ohio State this year. And it starts on defense. Defense is not a problem. It's the problem at the Ohio State University. In 3 games, and I thought I'd never say this in my entire life. In 3 games, Ohio State has given up 86 points. And if you include the last 4 games, which includes the national championship game against Alabama, they've given up 138, right? And I wanted to talk about this on our last episode, but we couldn't get it out. Kerry Combs, who was the defensive coordinator at Ohio State, he was a former defensive backs coach under Urban Meyer, and he was there under Luke Fickell and Jeff Hafley. No, he wasn't there with Jeff Hafley. He was gone by then. So he had left to go be a defensive backs coach in the NFL. Worked with Mike Vrabel at Tennessee. Did a really good job there. Obviously, they got a really good defense. And had never been a coordinator, but he's got Ohio roots. He's from Cincinnati. Has coached at Ohio State. He knows the facilities. He knows the mindset because Ryan Day very much brought over a lot of mindset from Urban Meyer. And I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt last year because it was a weird year. Ross, Ryan, you both said last year's kind of a wash. And I'm willing to agree with that one to an extent. Obviously, except for Ohio State's win over Clemson. I'll take that any day of the week. I don't care if it's the only game you play. If they beat Clemson, it's fantastic. And Michigan, that'd be great too. But they didn't play Michigan last year. So Clemson was our Michigan game last year, and I'll take it forever. But this year I can't give him the benefit of the doubt anymore, right? So going back and watching the Ohio State Alabama national championship game, that was 100% a battle between Steve Sarkisian and Kerry Coombs. Steve Sarkisian, head coach at Texas, was the offensive coordinator at Alabama, and just I remember watching the schemes and thinking to myself, he's being outplayed, he's being out schemed, and Kerry Coombs has said in interviews, right? And this is a big red flag for me. And I didn't know about it until I listened to my 24/7 Ohio State podcast. Somebody brought it up. It was a question asked of him how he likes working with Matt Barnes. Matt Barnes, who is the DB coach and young guy. Everybody talks highly of him as being a future coordinator, et cetera, et cetera. They asked him how he likes working with Matt Barnes. He said, I really like working with Matt Barnes. He's more of a tactician than I am, and it's really helpful. Now, I don't know about you, but I want my coordinators to be tacticians, right? That is 100% their job. They are playing a gridiron game of chess against the opposition on the other side of the field. And I can't anymore. Like Kerry Combs, I cannot. I want my coordinator to be a tactician. I want him to be. Listen, I love Kerry Combs. He did an amazing job. He's actually been. He was the guy who made like Ohio State be named DBU over the past couple of years. We're talking about guys like Eli Apple, Von Bell, Marshawn Lattimore, Jeff Okuda, just name after name after name after name who came and got big contracts in the NFL, right? And to that question as to who was calling plays against Tulsa, it was Matt Barnes. Matt Barnes was the DB coach. They swapped spots. Like Matt Barnes was up in the booth, and Kerry Combs is down in the field calling plays, and then they swapped. So Kerry Combs was up in the booth not calling plays, and Matt Barnes is down in the field calling plays, which I don't understand how that works. I was under the impression that usually your coordinators are up in the booth and they're passing down plays down to the coaches to pass to the players. But I don't know. They got this weird thing where they're rotating a buttload of players, and I think at this point, I thought I saw a stat like 50 some players on the roster have actually played in live snaps in 3 games. That feels like a lot. It should be a lot because we should be blowing the doors off of Tulsa, but that didn't happen. So I think honestly, moving forward, I could see Ryan Day. I think he's already said they're not going to make any major coaching changes, so I don't see Kerry Combs getting fired or just released. I think it's more along the lines of seeing just a regular role change, and the titles won't change. But basically, that's just like rearranging the chairs, the deck furniture on the Titanic. It doesn't bode well for the future, but I don't know. We'll see. Oh my gosh. Okay. I do want to talk about the offensive side of the ball. Um, it's not a problem. I know a lot of people are saying it is a problem, and I will say that they have come out flat and they're blowing people out of the water. And the problem that we have right now is when your defense is spotting your opponent 35 points, you basically you have to score 35 points. That means you need to come out and fast and score a lot. And that hasn't been happening. I want to say they've only scored a single touchdown in the first half of every single game so far, maybe 2. And I don't think it's 2. I think I'm correct on that one if I look at it. It's been pretty bad. It's been pretty bad, but it's not the problem, right? And the big thing that Ross touched on is they finally brought in Trayvon Henderson as a starter. They let him run roughshod all over Tulsa. Like he is the future. In overall, let me give you an example as to how dominant his game was. By the way, beat a rookie single game rushing record held by Archie Griffin. Don't know if you heard of him. Only 2-time Heisman Trophy winner. So that's pretty good. And on top of that, it only took him 1 game. He is now the team's leading rusher. It took him 1 game, and he is right now the 2021 leading rusher for the Ohio State Buckeyes. And watching him run, his running style reminds me of Ezekiel Elliott, Zeke, quite a bit. Zeke is tall. He's like 6'1". I think Henderson's like 5'10". Granted, he's only 18, so he could grow to be about 6 foot, but he's not small, and he doesn't look like he's 18 years old. And he reminds me of Zeke in the way that he's really shifty. He's got really good vision and just built like a brick shit house and fast. And to see him run as good as he did or how good he has been in the past 3 weeks, considering that like I said, he's only 18 years old, and the last time he played a meaningful snap of football was 2019. His senior year of high school, he's out of Virginia. Their state and their school went ahead and they delayed his senior year, and he enrolled early at Ohio State, so he didn't get to play his senior year of high school football in 2020. So he hasn't played football since 2019, and now he's 3 weeks in and looks phenomenal. And he's 100% the future. We got him for the rest of this season and 2 more years after. So I really hope he doesn't hurt himself. I really hope he doesn't get hurt at all. Or, you're going to get bruises here and there. But I hope we get to see some dominance from him moving forward. Also on offense, quarterback. The boys touched on the quarterback play. Overall, I believe in Stroud. Eventually, I think at a certain point, he's going to be a really good quarterback, if not a great quarterback. I don't think he's going to be the greatest quarterback in Ohio State history. I kind of hope he is because that means like a lot of good success considering that we got him and Dravion Henderson moving forward. But stats wise, he's fine. Right now, he's ranked ninth overall in passing yards and 14th in touchdowns. He's got 8 touchdowns and only 3 interceptions. And to give him a little bit of an excuse, he is a first time starter. It's his first time starting at that level. Like he hasn't played again. He hasn't played football like a meaningful snap to the point to where he's been hit hard at all since for like 2 years since 2019, and he's at a young age at a position at the position of a college football team right now and on a large national stage. They're a top 10 team and he's the brand new starting quarterback. But I agree with Ross. There's something that's not passing the eye test, and at this point, I can give him the benefit of the doubt. Those strange decisions to just throw the ball away, or to not, or to just to tuck the ball and run when it's right there, and just go. I've said it multiple times. Go, just go, right? And it feels like he's doing what he's trying to do way too much, and he's kind of over his head. I don't think he's over his head. I think he's just in his head. Like the issues between the brain right now. Maybe it's a confidence thing. I don't know. I think he's got the tools to do it. He's very smooth in his play, and it's just really strange that it's almost like he's trying to be too perfect. But like he doesn't have to. Like you've got Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, Jack Smith and Jibbian. You got Travion Henderson, Jeremy Ruckert. You've got a really good line play. Like I don't understand what's going on. And I will say, it did just come out. He is going to rest against Akron. He's only going to play in an emergency role. I don't think he's going to be needed because it's Akron, and Akron is really bad. And I meant to go back and look, and I don't think they've won a football game since 2019, and that might be pushing it. They are really bad, and they've been bad for a long time. But he is going to rest because he is dealing with an injured shoulder that is basically been confirmed. He's been dealing with a nagging, like a slight sprain or something like that. I don't know. And Ryan and I, we talked about it, him like grabbing his shoulder and working it out and loosening it and everything like that. And it's his throwing shoulder. And for some reason, like a lot of his passes, like he had a few overthrows deep against Minnesota and Oregon, but his overthrows against Tulsa were way worse. And I think that might have something to do with it. I don't know. We'll see. But it's going to be Kyle McCord and Jack Miller playing against Akron. They're going to get a bunch of snaps, and I'm going to call it right now. They're going to play lights out. They're going to do great, and all the idiot fans are going to be like, "Oh, Stroud needs to lose his job because obviously Jack Miller or Kyle McCord are better than he is." Like, guys, it's Akron. It's Akron. Anybody could be like a great against that D1 FBS team. Like they are absolutely the worst. But I don't know. And Ryan and Ross brought up the fact that there's so much talent in that team, in that quarterback room. They are 100% protecting Quinn Ewers. He had just gotten on campus. He wasn't supposed to be there until next year. So he's way behind the eight ball right now. I think they're just banking on him being getting his red shirt this year and moving forward. But like pulling Stroud right now and then just bringing in McCord, be like, what's the worst that could happen? It's like, well, could lose games. Like it could be worse, and that feels like throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. And I don't think that's a smart move. And to be honest with you, if you've got a quarterback who might possibly have issues with confidence, pulling him after 3 games when he is one of the better passers in the entire country right now, it would kill that confidence. I don't think it's a good move. But overall, overall, it doesn't. It feels like the team doesn't have a leader. Like I don't feel like they have a true leader. There's guys that were named captains. That's great and all, but nobody seems like a true leader. There are guys that if you're an Ohio State fan, you go back and you hear of their leadership. Like Zeke Elliott was a great leader. J.T. Barrett, Braxton Miller developed into one. Guys like uh, uh, I want to say Tough Borland was another one that came out. Like these Jeffrey Okuda, a lot of these guys came in and brought a lot of juice when it came down to being a true leader. But now it feels like there's nobody there that they're willing to just run through a wall for, right? Which could be why we see their lack of physicality. And I agree. They got out physicaled by Oklahoma. They got out physicaled by Minnesota. And I'm not saying Minnesota's a bad team. They're 2-1 right now. But if there are going to be way more physical contests moving down the road, like Michigan, Michigan State, Penn State, you can't be where they are right now, and they are a very young team in terms of experience. Like I brought it up before, they're ranked 121 in returning production overall, but they got to find somebody to be that team, to lead that team by not by example, but also by speaking it, and doing it, and just getting people rallied around them. And I don't know who that is right now. And that being said, when I bring up all those other teams who have leaders and can out physical Ohio State right now, the question is brought up: is Ohio State the best team in the Big Ten right now? And objectively, you can't say yes because there are teams that are undefeated. Penn State, who's got a big win over Auburn. And as of right now, I've got Penn State and Iowa ahead of them. Like Iowa and Penn State both have big wins. Ohio State does not have a big win. They beat Minnesota, who could end up being pretty good, but they lost to Oregon, who I personally think is actually a lot better than a lot of people are holding them for in terms of physicality. Their defense is going to be top notch once they get everybody back. But and maybe Michigan State. Michigan State's their best win is against Miami, who could possibly not be that great. They're definitely not ranked in the top 15 like they were last week when they lost. But I honestly think it's nothing that can't be fixed. But I don't know if it's going to be fixed this year, right? And so I know some of you are going to say, well, there's one team you didn't say that could possibly be better than Ohio State right now, but I'm never going to say that. That team up north is not. I'm never going to say that the team up north is better than Ohio State, not until they prove it. So, F them. But anyway, at the end of the day, my overall feeling, my own personal feeling about my favorite team in the entire college football landscape is this is not a national championship team. And that's not a hot take. Right? Anybody who's got a set of eyes or knows anything about college football can look at Ohio State and say, oh, it's not a national championship team. It's like, and that's fine. And I'm okay with that. I've relegated myself to that. Could they get to that point? Maybe. I don't see it. I'm not holding my breath. So what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to focus on the good. I'm going to see how good Travion Henderson can be at that position. I'm going to continue to see how Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson just continuing to rise their draft stock. I look forward to seeing Jackson Smith-Njigba being another future talent, possibly going to be that future number one after Olave and Garrett Wilson both leave. And Ryan, you did bring up Julian Fleming and how you're mad he didn't go to Penn State. I think Julian. So from what I heard, Julian Fleming was dealing with a lot of injuries last year, in particularly a nagging shoulder injury that caused his shoulder to go in and out regularly, which he got fixed over the break. I think we'll probably see a lot of him. He also did have some issues with drops. So physically wise, that kid is a monster. He's huge. And I look forward to seeing him get some catches this weekend. I really hope he gets some this weekend. I'm rooting for him, that's for sure. And so, yeah, that's what I got. Tell me what you think about my picks, boys.
Okay, so finally.
Yeah, Jim, that was great insight. No one cares.
Mind you, we're saying this as we have not heard what Jimmy says because he's going to record after us this week. So lastly, we're going to go back into our pick'em. Finally, I got back after 2 rough weeks in pick'ems. Went 4-1 last week. Ryan 3-2. Jimmy.
What's the overall look like?
I don't know. I haven't done it, but I think
Jesus Christ, Ross.
you
got a
and
spreadsheet or something?
I do. I just haven't done it. But I think you and Jimmy are pretty much at the top tied, and I'm still a game or two back. But 4-1 brings me back pretty close.
Very good.
So this week was a little rough picking games. We have some. Well, I say we have not that many exciting games, and it seems like every single time I say that is when just all hell breaks loose in college football. So
Akron beats Ohio State. You got all these crazy things going on.
Jesus Christ! OU plays West Virginia, which actually could be a decent game. But so this one, first game we got. Looking at it, I think is pretty much the game of the week. We have Notre Dame at Wisconsin. Wisconsin is a 6.5 point favorite. So I will go first on this one. I'm going to go Wisconsin on this. I'm not sold at all on Notre Dame this year. They got the quarterback from Wisconsin. Which Wisconsin is going to be looking to get a little revenge. But they just haven't looked that good this year at all, and not that impressive.
I think they're missing that running game. That's
and it's interesting. Week 1 they actually had a decent running game that we kind of I forgot who they played, but we brought it up. But yeah, I'm not so. Notre Dame might be the team ranked in the top 15 I'm most not sold on. I'm just not.
Okay.
So I think Wisconsin in that running game is going to get it done, and I think they're going to annihilate that quarterback.
So actually, before we get into this, I'm gonna let everybody know that a lot of these picks I'm pulling out of my ass. I don't know much about these teams. I do know a little bit about Wisconsin. I do know a little bit about Notre Dame. I'm gonna have to take to Ross's point. I think that the Notre Dame quarterback has a little bit of revenge factor in him instead of the other way around. I think Notre Dame is going to go out and win this outright.
Outright, okay. Wow. Is that like your lock of the week, or what's going on?
That's my stone cold. What is it? Stone cold lock of the week.
Is stone cold. Okay, so Ryan's going with the Fighting Irish.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll see. I could see that with them. I'm not sold on them, and plus I hate the Irish. So, okay. So
you hate them, man. The Irish. I'm from Pennsylvania, and people hate. You're either a Penn State fan or you're a Notre Dame fan. For some reason, in Pennsylvania, it's like Notre Dame or fucking Penn State, and that's it. But a lot of people are Notre Dame fans here. But I got to pick Notre Dame this week.
Okay. Well,
no,
that's not the worst call in the world. The next game. This is one of our other good ones. Texas A&M at Arkansas. Arkansas has been incredibly impressive to me. Their running game, they have a three-headed monster at running back that is, they run physical. They run to knock your damn block off. I like him a lot. And Texas A&M doesn't have their quarterback hurt, and I just hate the fucking Aggies. Let's be real. So I'm going to go Razorbacks to get the win.
And I'm going the Aggies.
Oh my God.
I think so. Aggies did have a they did win against Colorado. They lost their quarterback early in that game against Colorado at Mile High. Well, I guess it's not Mile High Stadium anymore. Now let's say that. I forget what it is. It's something at Mile High or whatever. My buddy was actually at that game, which is cool. So he sent me pictures. They did beat New Mexico. They beat them into the ground. I think that A&M is a better team than Arkansas. I think Arkansas is they did have. I mean, who did Arkansas beat week 2?
Texas.
Beat the shit out of Texas, and it's Texas. So
yeah,
I'm gonna have to go A&M on this one. And A&M is giving up 6 points. It's a tough pick, but I'm gonna have to pick A&M on this one. I think it might be kind of ugly too for Arkansas.
It's possible. Okay, so next game. This is the one that we thought was a little interesting. I actually had to check a couple websites to see if it was true. But Nebraska at...
Oh, this is one I asked you about too. This doesn't seem right.
Nebraska at Michigan State. Michigan State minus 3.5. I'm going Michigan State, and I'm going Michigan State big. If you haven't watched Michigan State's running back go, he is fun. He's a lot of fun to watch. And if Oklahoma can run for 5.5 yards a carry, and then Michigan State's got this beast mode, then I think it's going to get ugly. So I take Michigan State, and I take Michigan State big.
Yep, and I'm going to go ahead and take them big as well. This was a kind of a question mark. Ross sent me this pick and sent me the point spread on this one, and I thought there had to be a 10-point mistake on it. Like we were even looking like Michigan State being a 13.5-point favorite over Nebraska. But I think Michigan State and their running game and their quarterback is playing pretty damn well. He's got his relationship with those wide receivers. I mean, they talked about it during the broadcast. I ended up watching this game, but they talked about his relationship and him bringing out one of his wide receivers to Hawaii and just that relationship. You can see it on the field. You can see that Michigan State is ready to play, and they are a team to beat. I think at the end of the year, Michigan State might be one of the better teams in the Big Ten. So that's – and on the other end, I think Nebraska might be one of the worst. They are just a dumpster fire.
They could be. I like Michigan State. I like that running back Walker. He's a stud. I like him. Okay, so this one's going to be a little bit more interesting because two teams we don't know, either one of us know much about, even though one's in the Big 12. SMU at TCU. Rivalry game. TCU minus 10.5. For shits and giggles, Ryan, I'm going to make you go first on this one.
I'm going to take SMU. 10.5 points is a shit ton. And I'm going to take Dallas over Fort Worth in this one. I grew up in Dallas. SMU is a team out of Dallas, and TCU is a team out of Fort Worth. And I'm gonna lean on the Dallas pride here and take SMU. They got Tanner Mordecai, who's been playing well this year. Ross knows him very closely.
He's been playing out his ass this year. Oh my god!
I think SMU, maybe not in a win, but 10.5 points is a lot of points. So I'm taking SMU.
Yeah. This is gonna be a little tough for me. I want to take TCU. I'm sorry. I'm making this pick as we go. Sorry, guys. So you're going to hear my thought process through it. SMU does have Tanner Mordecai, and they have been putting up some good points lately. But and they also have Grant Calcaterra. And I know a bunch of you guys probably don't know who that is. He was the Mark Andrews after Mark Andrews for OU, was an absolute beast mode of a tight end. And then he got a couple concussions and ended up, quote-unquote, retiring from football. So he left the University of Oklahoma. And then after Mordecai, who's one of his good friends, went to SMU, Grant Calcaterra decided to go back to SMU and play with him. And since then, he's a tight end. He's got 12 catches, almost 200 yards, averaging 16 yards receptions, and 4 touchdowns in 3 games. He's pretty beast mode. And yeah, they're like, what Mordecai, like, let's get real for 2 seconds. Like, It's SMU. We'll see what they do. The pace that he's on right now, Mordecai will be invited to the Heisman.
Jesus.
He is completing 73% of his passes. In 3 games, has thrown over 1,000 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions in 3 games.
Bring him back to OU, buddy.
I mean, let's bring him back. With all that, give me the Horned Frogs.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah, kind of throw you for a little squirrel. No, I think SMU is very talented offensively. But TCU, Gary Patterson always had he's had a couple down years, but he usually has a very good team at TCU, a very disciplined team. They have Zach Evans now at running back, who week 1 they kind of eased him in, didn't do too much. For y'all that don't know who Zach Evans is, he is a guy that was the number 1 recruit in the country. I don't know, it was like 2 years ago. Committed to Georgia. Got into a fist fight, literally, with his running back coach. Kicked off the team. And then went to TCU, sat last year, and here he is. Week 1, did not play. Week 2 had 5 carries for 27. Last week had 20 carries for 190 yards. So here he goes.
They're gonna unleash him.
Yeah, he's a head case. Don't get me wrong. He's a goddamn head case. But on the football field, he is incredibly talented.
You know what's good about that too? I mean, good, but last year last year every player could take as a wash, right? Even if they played or not, right?
Yeah, everybody could. Sam Ellinger,
So,
who was at the University of Texas for 77 years, could have came back last year or this year if he wanted to. Just saying. Yeah, so
and Texas still would have sucked, right, Ross?
Oh
Cheers.
yeah, they're god awful. But yeah, I mean, last year he played sparingly. He had 54 attempts. He averaged 7.7 yards a carry last year on 54 attempts. So he's starting. Gary Patterson is going to get this guy in the loop. He's going to start giving the ball. I think. I mean, even though. SMU's been a pretty darn good team. Like we talked about with Cincinnati, it's going to be a little different when you get into the Big 12, a Power 5 conference all the time.
Yep.
SMU, who's been playing well, when the TCU Horns Frogs put that Power 5 offensive line on the field and start just ramming it in your face over and over and over, it's just a different game. And I think that's going to wear on SMU. And I know, and I do agree with you, Ryan, though, 10.5 points is a lot.
That is a lot. And that's like a damn near a home game for SMU as well. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a bus trip.
It's a toss-up on the home field advantage. But I'm going to go with the Big 12. Shocker. And
Shocker.
I know. So whatever.
Hey, I went against the Big Ten when I picked Notre Dame, so it's okay.
That's true.
You're allowed one of those ones.
Okay, but yeah, I'm going to go with the TCU. I'm going to go with Horned Frogs. I think they're going to get the job done this week at SMU. So,
Cool.
Finally, last but not least, we have LSU at the Fighting Pirate Leeches. LSU -4. I personally, I'm going to go for the swinger. I'm going to go the swinging for the fences. I'm going to go with Mike Leach and the Bulldogs. LSU. I mean, if they can't contain a Chip Kelly offense subpar, I don't know how they're going to contain a Mike Leach offense. I think they're going to put up some points. I just don't think LSU is going to be able to keep a track. So I'm going to go with the Bulldogs.
Okay. I'm going to go against you again, which I think this is like 4 out of the 5 picks.
Yeah, the only one that we're the same is the Michigan State. So
yeah.
Either one of us is going to take a big lead,
Yeah.
or one of us is going to be way behind after this week.
Yeah, I got to take LSU on this one. I think LSU is a better team than they showed at UCLA. I think the travel to LA during that game kind of affected them. I think they're a better team. I still think they're a good team in the SEC. I still think they're better than Michigan State. Like, yeah, Mike Leach can do his thing, but also Mike Leach could lose by 50 points, and because we've all seen it.
Yes,
he either wins by 50 or loses by 50, and I'm gonna lean on LSU on this one.
All right. So, Ryan, before we kind of close this out, just FYI, I got the math now. The overall record going into this week, you and Jimmy are both tied at the top at 8-7, and I'm right behind at 7-8.
Okay.
So
we're all three of us are awful, but it's a fun time.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm usually better than you guys. I just had it down 2 weeks. But
I mean, when it comes to like betting standards, like, hey, anybody that listens to this podcast, do not listen to our bets and do not listen to our picks. Just do your thing. And
unless you listen to me, because I'm usually pretty right. But anyways, that's all we have of the show for this week. I will say, NFL, we are 2 weeks into the season. We're excited to talk about the NFL, but we're going to wait about maybe next week or the week after. Wait for a lot of things to start hitting. Kind of some of these guys, teams that are 2-0, we all know is not going to be 2-0. Some teams that are 1-1 are going to step up. So we're going to start hitting the NFL here in a week or two. So we got that coming in the future. And then Jimmy's going to give his Randy Pandy Ohio State, and I'm sure he's actually going to dog him pretty bad because he's not too happy with his. He's not too happy with his Buckeyes. So, with that, we're going to pass it off to Jimmy to close this out. Talk to y'all next week. Bye, bitches.
See ya.
Okay, now moving on to picks, and I'm gonna close out the show. I don't want to make this last too long because those two idiots talked a lot longer than I thought they did, even though it's still less than what we normally do. But they started off with Notre Dame at Wisconsin. Wisconsin favored -6.5. Wisconsin defense is stout with a capital S. Right now they're ranked 2 in total yards allowed and 11th in points allowed, only allowing 11 points a game. That's insane. And Notre Dame's defense is not good. They're not great. You're talking about a Notre Dame team that gave up, I think it was over 30 points against Florida State. Yeah, you heard me. Florida State, who lost to Jacksonville State. Yeah, give me Wisconsin to cover on this one in Madison. Like, I'm with Ross on this one. I have no faith in Notre Dame. They haven't played anybody yet, and they haven't shown me anything to say, ooh, this is a great football team. Definitely not a team that should be ranked in the top 15 right now. Then we got Texas A&M favored by 4.5 at Arkansas. Texas A&M has not beaten a good team. Best team they faced so far is Colorado, and they beat them by, it was like 10-3. Arkansas took the Longhorns to the woodshed in Austin, right? On top of A&M not having their quarterback, give me Arkansas to cover on this one and possibly win at home. I do think they can win on this one. If anything, I think they're going to cover. And A&M is a wounded duck right now, and Arkansas is looking pretty good. Again, that rushing attack is monstrous. Then we got Nebraska at Michigan State in Lansing. Michigan State favored by -3.5. I shouted him out first week. Kenneth Walker III, who is a transfer from, I think it was Wake Forest. But he's been on an absolute tear, and I had said he might have played himself into a just draft pick, but he's might be one of the top 5 running backs in the entire country, right? He's killing it. I think he's not leading the entire country in rushing yards, but he's up there. He's top end. It's really good. And overall, they got a pretty good offense. They're averaging 520 yards a game on total offense. And in some of those games, one of them was against Northwestern, who traditionally has really good defense, and then Miami, who's had pretty good defense over the past couple of years. So it's not like they're playing nobodies. Granted, Northwestern and Miami are both probably down this year, but they're putting up the numbers, man. Like, again, I said, if you don't put up good numbers against bad teams if your offense is bad. Like you put up okay numbers, like Ohio State. Oh, speaking of that, I did want to go back to it. Um, Penn State's offense, which is looking pretty good, is ran by Mike Yurcich. OU's defense, which is being ran by Alex Grinch and looking pretty good on defense for OU. Both of those gentlemen were on Ohio State staff, and Ohio State is not doing great at either. I just wanted to bring that up. Anyway, moving on to SMU at TCU. TCU is favored by 10.5. Right now, SMU is ranked 11th in passing yards and points total. And I completely agree with Ross on Tanner Mordecai. And I know he claims him because that's like Ohio State claims Joe Burrow still. But if Tanner Mordecai stays on this pace and stays healthy, they have to invite him to New York. He's on an absolute tear. He's leading the country in 16 touchdowns, and Ross already talked about it. And TCU 100% can run the ball. But 10.5 is a lot of points. That's a lot of points. I don't necessarily know if SMU is going to win, but I think they're going to be able to cover that 10.5 points, specifically on their passing, right? So it's going to be a close game. It could be a high-scoring game because neither team is super great on defense. They're both kind of mediocre. They're kind of good, kind of bad. But it's going to be a slobber knocker for sure, and it's the Iron Skillet. I love that name for a rivalry. Me and Ross have talked about rivalry names, and that's a pretty good one. And then we're going to close it out here with LSU at Mississippi State. LSU favored minus 2.5. Ross and Ryan, they both said that Leach can either win by 50 or lose by 50, and I think he loses this one. Like LSU is not the greatest on defense, but again, still pretty good in terms of talent for sure. They've got these two guys, Eli Ricks and Derek Stingley Jr. Not sure if you heard of those two, but they're both two NFL talent guys, and I think they can. I don't think they're going to necessarily completely stifle that passing offense because it's Mike Leach. He's a mad pirate and he's a mad scientist, and he can do whatever he wants basically. But I think in terms of rushing the ball, LSU can go ahead and focus on the rushing while their great DBs, do everything they can to limit the amount of yards and points given up in the air. Also, right now, LSU is ranked 7th nationally in sacks. I think they got 4.5 or 5. So they can get pressure on a quarterback, which could make it a bad day for Mississippi State. I think LSU is definitely going to cover this one. I think they're going to win by more than 2.5. So that's all we got for this week. Thank you again for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed our obviously you enjoy it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be coming back. Because I feel like we got the same people who are coming back every week to listen to our podcast. But, what are you going to do? Anyway, I will catch you on the next one. Really looking forward to getting on a call with the other boys so we can actually just, ping pong off of each other. I really missed it. I love listening to them talk to each other. And it felt like I was right there with them. I wish I could be there with them. So catch you next week, and let's watch some football, huh? All right, bye.